This is going to be one of the most powerful videos I've made. I've had a lot of those recently, and I think that we're just going to rock with it. I've gone through a lot of spiritual growth myself over the past few weeks, and I think that's where all of these revelations are coming from. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic, but I also am aware that there's going to be a lot of perhaps misunderstanding throughout this topic. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about the dark side of how the Bible allows you to escape the matrix and free yourself from the illusions of reality. I have a series of verses here that I want to share and go through, and these verses from the Bible are among the darkest that I perceive to be. And they're not necessarily dark as in fatalistic or anything of like that nature. It's more of an existential nature. And so we're going to start at the very beginning, and we'll go through these verses here, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. But this first series of verses is going to be from Genesis 3:14 and then 16 and 17. And so it says, "And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all of the days of thy life." And then 16 and 17 says, "Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all of the days of thy life." Well, now that's a pretty intense punishment for the serpent, which is you can consider to be the devil, and then Adam and Eve. You know, those are really harsh punishments, and I want to talk about the mythology of it as well as the alignment with it and why it is part of the dark side of reality. Because we live in a modern world, right? So a lot of the times people don't understand what exactly it means. Why did God punish Eve to greatly multiply her sorrow in conception when she brings forth children? And why is it a punishment for her necessarily for her desire to only be for thy husband, and that he shall rule over thee? Why exactly is that a punishment? And I'm approaching this from a mysterious perspective. I'm approaching this from a place of trying to understand as if I was reading it for the first time. You know, why is it the case that woman, the woman, Eve, why is it that her desire should be to her husband is a punishment because she listened to the devil? You know, let's ponder this for a second. But with Adam, God's punishment is that the ground is cursed for thy sake. In sorrow thou shalt eat of it all of the days of thy life. So a man's life is bound to be hard. A man's life is bound to be difficult. There's absolutely no way going around it. And that's why people say, oftentimes, and that's why it is the manly thing to do, to accept your feelings, but do what you need to do anyway. I did not want to do leg day today. I did not want to do legs. I was tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep as much as I wanted to because I was up last night. I was doing a lot of creativity work, and sometimes when I get lost in creativity, I just allow it to flow. And when I'm in that state of mind where I'm just allowing myself to flow, I don't like to stick to my bedtime. I usually go to bed around 9:30, and I get up at 4:30, 4:45 sometimes to get to the gym by 5 in the morning. And it's often that it's not often that I stay up later than I usually do, but I did last night, and I was just in that flow. And today I had to do legs because that was just that's what I needed to work on. And I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. Throughout the day, still doing and dealing with the reality of, work and seeing the matrix in work and seeing how people operate in the world. It's baffling sometimes to think about how so many people just live their life not knowing how to lead it, and then being expected to lead other people, and then getting upset when the plans, quote unquote, don't pan out. It's like, well, the plans weren't realistic. The plans weren't really on par with the reality of the situation. And yet, the leader in this case chose to have the plan anyway. And last week, I was concerned for the plan itself, and I was against it, and I voiced that I do not recommend this route. And guess what happened today? we had to re-strategize everything and go back to square one, and everybody was not on the same page. And it's just like, yeah, I know. Like I tried to say this, but you can't talk about this kind of stuff. Sometimes when you're at your job, when you have to do what you need to do, you've got to just put your head down and do your work. And you've got to keep the exciting feeling of wonder to yourself on your own time. Because a lot of the times, it's crazy to me how, I'm 27 years old. And it seems like most people have given up on life by the time that they're like 24, 25. They've just given up. It's like, I'll just do this, I guess. And then it's amazing to me how robotic people can be in the workplace sometimes. And I'm not talking about this job that I'm at specifically, but in the past I've had jobs where it's like these people are so robotic. And you're seeing through the matrix. You're seeing through everything. And you're like, your eyes are wide open and theirs are wide shut. And it's just, it's astounding to witness, because you're just in awe of the lack of leadership that these people have in their own lives. And again, I'm talking about previous jobs here, but there was that situation at my current job today, and it just was another, pain in the butt. But this is part of the awakening process where you have to accept that not everything's in your control. But I want to go back to why the woman and her desire to be to thy husband is going to be her punishment, and why that actually makes so much more sense on where we're at nowadays in the modern time. Why is it the case that so many feminists are destroying the ideal of marriage and destroying the idea of a career? We gave, as men, we gave these women what they wanted. I was looking for videos and content pieces to talk about it. I was just doing research, and I came across this video of this woman who was 30, 32 years old, something like that. She was in her early 30s, and she has an OnlyFans, and she made a rap. I didn't even want to play it because it was just so vulgar. Like, I'm I can handle vulgarity. Like, I'm okay. Like, I don't curse. I swear. I cuss. I don't curse, but I will swear. And this woman had more she had more colorful language than a bowl of Fruit Loops. Let's just say that. And then she was fruity pebbles on top of it. Man, she was nuts. But she was making this rap about her OnlyFans about how she didn't care anymore, that she was a masturbating, you know, I don't even know how much I want to go into this, but it was just a very colorful video. And she talked about all the things that she would be doing with her OnlyFans clients, and how many sex partners she's had, and she doesn't care if the whole world knows. And it was just, this is what happens, like when women are not having a stable masculine man in their life. They partake of the forbidden fruit. But why is it the case that the serpent, why is it the case that he is cursed above all cattle and above every beast in the field? And why shall he eat dust the rest of the days of his life? What exactly is the significance of that? Because it also says later on down the line in Genesis 3:19, it says, "In the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread." It's talking about the man, right? "Till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, and for dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return." But it says earlier that the devil's going to eat dust the rest of the days of his life. It almost reminds me of the song "Another One Bites the Dust" by Queen. You know what? A lot of the times the devil's a loser. Wants to make it seem like he's a winner. And this is part of the Matrix thing, right? This is part of the whole society that we live in. You know, get a this, get a that, get a this, do a that, do a this. Who cares? You're liberated. Oh yeah, do it. You know, who cares? I'm just going to shake my ass in the club, and I'm going to go home with that guy, and I'm going to sleep with that girl, and I don't care if how many hoes I get, like, as long, I don't care what my body count is, etc., etc., etc. All this degenerate shit. They're eating dust. These demons that have possessed them, they're eating dust, but they don't know it. But at least the man knows that he will have to work for everything that he gets now. And so this is part of the harsh reality of life, is that, and it's actually good for the woman, even though it's a punishment. It's actually good for the woman to desire her husband and for him to rule over her, because what happens when she does, like when she's not ruled over by the man? You get the OnlyFans chick talking about how she doesn't care how many people know, like she doesn't care how many people know that she slept with hundreds of guys. She doesn't care that, like, she even said in the, I don't even know if I want to say it. I'll say it. She even said that she had a jalapeno, like, stuck up her butt because this is something that someone wanted. And even though it hurt like hell, she loved every second of it. This is how degenerate and disgusting these modern women have become. Okay? It's just horrible. This is what happens when men are not ruling. We go into the Garden of Eden and we partake of the forbidden fruit, and shit happens for real. Now, the next verse I want to talk about is Matthew 28. Or Matthew 10:28, and it says, "And fear not them which kill the body, but they are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." Now, what exactly does this verse mean, and why is this such a dark side of the Bible? Because this is Jesus speaking right here. So who is he talking about exactly? Is he talking about God being able to be the one to destroy you in both soul and body in hell? Or is he talking about the devil? And why should you not fear those that kill the body but are not that are unable to kill the soul? It reminds me of the the movie Braveheart, at the end of the movie, where William Wallace is the main character, I believe. William Wallace is being tortured, and all he cries out before his execution is freedom. He screams freedom because they cannot take the freedom that he has in his soul. So they might take his body, but they're not taking his soul. And a lot of the times people think that because their body can be destroyed in some way, that they're going to have their soul taken from them. And so they actually just give up their soul for the sake of their body. But in reality, what that's actually doing, no. What that's actually doing is making sure that you are actually going to hell. And I mean that in regard to a place of mind. It's a mind, it's a state of mind, hell is. It's a state of mind. And believe me, I know it. I've been in hell multiple times. But the darkest point of my life, the darkest moment, was when I finally realized that these people, it was just before I realized this, actually. It was just before I realized that these people could not take my soul, even though they might take my body. And I was absolutely scared out of my wits in this moment. And I will not go into the details on what exactly was happening at this time, but my life was in danger. And I saw, it wasn't necessarily my life flash before my eyes. It was more like I just saw the weight of reality and the truth that your life can end at any time really just smack me right in the face. And I was about 22, 23 at this time, 22. It was shortly after my spiritual awakening. And so it was about 5 years ago. And at this time, I was not sure how I was going to make myself into the person that I am today. If it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for Jesus, if it wasn't for God's forgiveness and mercy, I do not think I would be here at this time. And so I am forever grateful for that, but it also goes to show just how important it is to keep the faith in those dark times. And when I finally accepted the fact that, at least the possibility that I might be physically destroyed, that's when I started to really feel more free in my soul, even though I didn't quite understand what was happening. In retrospect and in reflection, that's exactly what was happening. Now, the last verse I want to go to is Revelation, and it is Revelation 3:14 through 17, I believe. Yes. No. 3:15 through 17. Revelation 3:15 through 17. It says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of thy mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. And it goes on, let's read one more verse here, 18. I counsel thee to buy me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich in white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. And appoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Well, firstly, what really hits the nail on the head for me as I was reading this was this whole I don't need no man or I don't need no woman kind of mindset. The more the so the I don't need no man, because in 17 verse 17 here it says, because thou sayest, I am rich and increase with goods and have need of nothing, but they know not that they're wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. It just goes to show that they're not necessarily poor materialistically all the time, but they are absolutely poor spiritually. They have no spiritual wealth. They don't understand how miserable and really naked they are. And we go full circle back to Genesis, where after Adam and Eve partake of the forbidden fruit, they realize they're naked, right? Now, nakedness is not necessarily perverted. Nakedness is only perverted if you believe it to be perverted, right? But that's why they thought that they had to clothe themselves, Adam and Eve, because they had this paradise, but then they realized that they were naked and they felt shame. Well, why did they feel shame? Why is there a shame in nakedness? And why is it important to be modest? You know, what exactly does that mean? Because a lot of the times people are not modest nowadays. And I'm not saying that you can't like wear a tank top or anything like here and there. Or I'm not saying you can't, like, if you're at the gym or something and you're a woman and you want to show off a little bit of what you've worked for, I don't see a problem in that. However, what I do see a problem in is where you're acting like you're acting like you're walking into a brothel. That's where I have an issue there. And where you treat people like tricks and you're acting like a prostitute. That's where I have an issue. But I do not expect a woman to go into the gym in a like baggy hoodie and baggy pants. Now, if she did that, then I would be intrigued by the woman, because at least there's some room for imagination. But a lot of the women out here don't leave room for imagination. And then you have the men on the flip side that they think that wearing these super long string or like these super low cut tank tops, that like they think wearing that every day is like, I don't care if you do that a couple times or here and there or whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal if a man wants to show off a little bit of what he's worked for either. However, it's like when you start to fall into the spirit of this demonic, lustful entity, that's when I think the issue is going to arise. And this happens even just out and about in like the grocery store or at the coffee shop or whatever. And, or where you're out, like even at the farmer's market. I went to the farmer's market recently and I was just profoundly amused by the level of promiscuity that was out by like these teenagers, like these teenage girls. It was just like, it was almost like there was like this fatherliness in me that wanted to go over to tell them, like, you don't need to have all of that stuff hanging out just to get attention. It's just not right for these teenage girls to be like wearing stuff like that. It's just not right. I think it's very harmful for their self-esteem later on. I think it's very harmful, but like it just goes to show also that where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? A lot of the fathers out here are lukewarm. There's not a lot of fathers that are hot or cold. Now, what exactly does that mean, hot or cold, in regard to the Revelation text here? I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So God wishes that you are actually either like all in or all out. Like this half in, half out is not okay. And you're not going to get anywhere being lukewarm. That's what the term lukewarm means, right? And because you're lukewarm, if you are lukewarm, that is, God's going to spit you out of his mouth. This is the dark side of God. Like, God's a very merciful and forgiving God, but he also doesn't take any shit. He's very kind. He's very accepting. But you don't just get to walk all over God. You don't get to do that. And believe me, I tried in my past. I tried to bend the fold of reality. I tried to make sure that flap A went to flap Z and instead of flap A to flap B. I tried to do that. However, there is a secret sauce that God gives you. If you fold, like Terrence McKenna says, if you fold flap A to flap C, then you get something else entirely. And I got the whole alphabet when I folded flap A to flap Z. C, not Z, C. And I'm speaking metaphorically here, and I hope you guys are following along, but the point is that spiritually speaking, you can make your own portals. And you can actually like, and what I mean by that is you can make your own portals of reality and through manifestation. But the way that you manifest is not the way that these witches and warlocks out here manifest. It's very different. Manifestation for godly people is very different compared to the witches and the warlocks. I don't even necessarily like the word manifestation. I like the word creation. Because the way that you create your life is going to be the way that you manifest your life. A lot of the times, these women out here that are into astrology, that are into tarot cards, they're into all these things, all this dark spiritual age shit. A lot of them think that the way that you go about life is just wishing it into existence. It just goes to show how privileged these women are, right? Because has any man out there taken astrology seriously? Like I, as far as like the horoscopes and such, because I do think that there's some kind of intrinsic value to astrology, because as Carl Jung says, that astrology is a unconscious projection of the fantasy of unconsciousness itself. So I think that there's some kind of intrinsic value in understanding astrology for that reason. But I don't think there's very many men out there that take this kind of shit seriously where like, yeah, they believe in horoscopes and all that stuff. I don't think there's very many out there, but there's a lot of women that think this is, and it's because it gives them this safety net and it gives them this ability to be neither hot nor cold. They don't have to be all in. But what is life without being all in? That's what God is saying in this verse. And that's one of the reasons why it's dark, is because if you're hot, if you're all in, that's what I mean by hot. If you're all in life, if you're on fire for God's word, there's going to be a lot of things out there that try to stop you from progressing and excelling and becoming the person that you're meant to be. And this is actually starting to get to be a pretty decently long video. And I have a lot more to say on this subject, so perhaps I'll make like a part 2 sometime. But if you got this far in the video, I appreciate you watching. And I also encourage you to check out the 7 Deadly Sins group session that we're going to be having. Not this weekend, but the weekend after. That's for all men. And then in 2 weeks, I guess in like almost 3 weeks now, there's going to be the male and female group session where we'd go over the 7 deadly sins and how to overcome them and unlock the inner virtues of life. And so with all that being said, may peace be with you. Till next time.